And it really goes to prove that if you don't measure something, nothing will be done about it.
And we have to make New Jersey's business climate more attractive for entrepreneurs.
We are Wonder Women. Like, look at all these women and what they've done and what they've tried. And even if they didn't succeed, they gave it a shot.
I don't think it's fair to put a $4 or $5 billion price tag on middle-class New Jerseyans.
We've got a great lifestyle here, and I don't want to see it ruined because politicians can't manage our finances properly.
Welcome, I'm Lisa Allen, and this is As a Matter of Fact. We are filming from Hometown TV Studios in Summit, New Jersey. Today, I'm introducing you to a very special guest to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that is women's leadership. My guest name is Elaine Williams, and for over 40 years, she has spoken to over thousands of people across the country and internationally, both as a performer and as a public speaker. As a speaker, a communication coach, and an author, Elaine has facilitated difficult conversations on college campuses on important issues close to her heart, such as assault prevention and alcohol abuse. Elaine is multi-talented, and one of her great gifts is her persona as a stand-up comedian. If you haven't seen her perform in New York City comedy clubs, you may have already seen her on America's Got Talent, Saturday Night Live, HBO, ABC, NBC, Fox TV, or the New York Times. She is a woman who has overcome great odds, and today we're going to be diving into those struggles, her triumphs, and how learning forgiveness has helped pave the way for her own healing, which has allowed her to create a business that teaches other women how to develop confidence, define their personal leadership, and by Elaine's standards, help women craft messages that make them memorable. Oh, welcome, Elaine. It's so good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I've been really looking forward to this for weeks. So
me too.
Here we are. But and you braved the rain, right?
And the humidity.
And the humidity.
Right.
I know, it's crazy. So you and I have talked a lot because we were preparing for this interview, so I feel like I know you inside and out. But for the audience, I really want to talk about the triumphs and the struggles that I had mentioned in the intro, because who you are today was really formulated in those early years.
Yes.
So why don't we start there? Tell the audience, briefly, a little bit about your background and how you ended up here today.
Sure. So I grew up in this crazy Texas family, and there was a lot of dysfunction, and we didn't have the internet back then, so we didn't have all the tools and resources. I know it's shocking. There were 3 TV channels. It was a different time.
And you were the remote control.
I was the remote control. The rabbit ears, change the channel, right. And so, my parents divorced when I was 4, and at the time, people didn't get divorced like they do now. And so I remember feeling like something is wrong. Something is wrong with me. Something's wrong with my family. And I remember feeling very anxious and like I didn't have the words to articulate it, but like this big black hole. And I didn't realize it, but that's one of the signs of sort of an addictive personality. And, my father remarried this crazy woman who was undiagnosed bipolar, raging addict, alcoholic. And my mother had her own challenges growing up as an albino woman who's legally blind. Now she's done amazing things with her life, but she had definitely some personality challenges too. So, I've got these 3 parents and they're all dealing with their own stuff, and I'm like this needy kid. So it was, so I was always looking. So when I did my first show, The Sound of Music, I was like, applause, love, I'm in, sign me up. I just loved it. And theater feels like a family. So I'm so grateful because that really is what kept me alive, which is one of the reasons I'm so passionate about expression and creativity. And, if you want to try stand-up comedy, if you want to go do poetry, I think it would help our youth so much. That's, one of my passions is just helping people heal and tell their story and be heard and listened to. So that's one reason I love theater and comedy. So I was always doing that while we were moving and changing and crazy stuff. And then, I went away to college and I partied really hard because I was free of the witch. It had been so abusive. And luckily I had the fear of God in me. So I would go to college even if I was still hungover or drinking or whatever. And then I realized my 3rd year, oh my God, I have to be an actress. I'd grown up performing and I was trying to grow up and be something real like journalism or advertising or communication. And I finally realized this isn't a choice. So that was a whole nother, that's a whole nother one-woman show. But I'm just so grateful because, just to jump back for a minute, I got into a physical fight in high school, at my high school campus. My stepmother came and she and I had words, and she came at me and I was defending myself, and there was blood. Like, it was horrific. One of the most shaming incidents ever. And my father, I had to go to the principal's office and had to listen to her lie, and both of the men believed her over me. And my choir director, who knew what was really going on at home, she knew I was getting abused and molested. She took me back to the principal's office afterwards and said, I know what's really happening in this house. And she stood up for me. And she was really like my mom. And I was in Europe when I was 16, which was crazy, visiting my mother. And the only reason I came back was because of Miss Bircher. And so, I'm so grateful for the adults. I always had an angel, Lisa. I always had an angel who was there when it was really hard at home. Yeah. So anyway, I hope that's a little bit about my childhood.
Well, no, and I want you to keep going on, but I wanted just to mention that Oprah had talked about that trauma is significant in people's lives. And if kids go through trauma, they end up going through almost PTSD. And the one thing that keeps them, if they don't go into PTSD, because some kids actually go through trauma, but then they flourish in life. And we're like, why? What's the difference?
What is the difference? Right.
It's the one person that makes a difference in their life that says, you're worth it. I love you. You can do this. And so that's just what it sounds like, that you had that one person to help kind of bridge that gap of trauma.
Yes.
So that's,
and I love to tell that story because I think a lot of teachers, they give, they don't get paid a lot, they have to bring their own supplies, but you just never know the difference you're making. And so, when I go to college campuses and I talk to the professors, I always thank them because a lot of them are on campus from like 9 in the morning till 10 at night. And, a lot of people do so much. So yes, it was, I was working on a healing modality, emotional freedom technique. It's tapping. And because I'm really into healing and I've done every certification, right? And so we had to pick an incident from our childhood that was traumatic. And there was another time when I was saying, Daddy, can you get off the phone? She's hitting me. Can you, and I remember like trying to avoid her. And we had this big house at the time. And I kept saying, can you get off the phone? And he didn't get off the phone. So I'm doing this exercise in my healing thing. And I realized it's not that he wouldn't get off the phone. He wasn't capable. Like, he was this man who found himself with these two crazy women in his life and his daughter. He wasn't capable of, it was just too much for him. And so that was a tremendous healing for me because he loved me, but he was just in a really uncomfortable, horrific situation. Right. So that was so freeing. And so, I love telling that story because I'm coming up on 18 years sobriety. Whoa. Wow. I started when I was 2. And it's, I'm such a big fan of the 12-step world, but also therapy and EFT and yoga. And, I'm like, bring it all, it all, you know?
So you have a life of, from trauma, and you were assaulted, you were molested. You had someone in your life, though, that was able to bring you out of that, because then when you left home, you went to college.
I did.
You went, right? And so that was a whole nother world for you, because is that when you started speaking on college campuses? Because you've been out there. One of the things that I was really drawn to is that you took your trauma and you flipped it out and you helped others. I think sometimes what we do is we experience these traumas and it's easy to live in victimization. Of course, it's natural, right? But to be able to go through a struggle and learn how to cope with it by giving back to others and helping them, that's what you did, going out onto college campuses.
Yes, well, I didn't start when I was in college. I was one of those, and I feel like this is an important point, is I was a functioning addict and alcoholic. I made good grades, except for the semester when I got into crystal meth, which I do not recommend. But I was always like functioning, but inside I was really a mess.
Right.
And I was like struggling, and then I was doing acting, and I was doing all these things, but I was still miserable. You know how you tell yourself, I'll be happy when?
Yeah.
And so I was getting all this stuff, and inside it was still like something was wrong. So luckily I got invited to the Landmark Forum, and I was like, these people are so happy. Oh, I hated, like, they were still like, I just did this. I just bought my first house. And I was like, oh.
How is that possible to be that happy?
I want what they have, you know? And so I went, because I'd given up on my family at this time. My mother was God knows where. My stepmother had stolen money for, like, just crazy stuff had happened. So I just had kind of shut that off. So I'm sitting there, and I'm in this course for 3 days, and I am seeing, like, wow, my anger and resentment is sort of affecting, like, this and bosses and relate, you know, and I saw it, but I still was like, and then I had this moment, Sunday morning, the leader was like, how many Diet Cokes are you going to drink? How many cigarettes are you going to smoke? This is your life! And I was like, whoa, and I was like sobbing and snot and sweating and you know, and I went to the phone and I called my dad and my stepmother and I said, I love you and I forgive you and I hope that you can love and forgive me. Like, I still have goosebumps. And they were like, are you okay? You know, I was like, I'm doing this forgiveness. I mean, I was literally coming undone, but something about that, I sat there and I just felt all this dark energy leaving my body because, you know, when you have rage and it's justified, but like it's killing you.
Yeah.
You know, and I love, you know, to me, I'm a big fan of like, get the anger out, but don't like stay there, you know, express it, but then, you know, be willing to let it release, however that is for you. Kickboxing, go break some plates, you know, like don't hurt anything. So I didn't know what had happened, but I just knew I have to have more of that. And luckily that helped me stop doing drugs. I stopped being bulimic. And then 2 years later, as I was moving to New York City, I hit my bottom. I did crazy stuff when I was drinking. And I woke up in the gutter next to my car on 6th Street. Thank God I wasn't in my car. And the cops took me into a cab and they should have taken me to jail. I'm lucky. And the next day my roommate was like, you can't do that if you move to New York. You're gonna, you know, and I was like, okay. So I went to AA, but I was very much like, I don't need this. I have money in the bank. These people are just, ugh.
They're not me.
Right.
Yeah.
And this one guy was like, it doesn't matter if you're from Yale or jail. And I was like, oh, please, you know. And luckily, I'm so stubborn, but I kept, you know, I'd given my word. That was Landmark stuff that had taught me that. And I kept hearing horror stories of people who had been, you know, CEOs and judges and law, you know, really successful people who'd become homeless. And that scared me enough to keep going. And then I was like, Elaine, with your family history, lots of alcoholism, people in prison, it makes sense
that you landed in this position, right?
So, you know, so you can choose. So I've been on this really into healing and modality, and I'm fascinated, and I'm so hoping that we can keep talking about addiction, the opioid epidemic, because there still is a stigma, but you know, it affects so many people, and I feel like the more we can talk about it, again, not like dwell on the victim of it, but let's talk about it so we can help people get over their trauma or learn other things.
Yeah, I want to talk about some of the modalities that you use because I think, you know, connecting Eastern and Western modalities together really help. But before we go there, because I think this is really important, you said something about forgiveness. And Brené Brown said that in order for forgiveness to happen, something has to die. And so inside of you, you have to let something go. I mean, it's whether it's dying, you know, metaphorically, but you're letting it go because unless you legitimately say, I forgive you, you can't forgive some of the injustices that are happening that you're doing to yourself.
That's such a good point.
Right?
And, you know, I feel like I work my program so imperfectly. I feel like I bumble along, but I'm all about, like, I feel like imperfect action is better than perfect almost, you know?
Yeah, perfection kills everything.
Right. And I'd rather be present and like, this is what I have. I am very imperfect, but this is what I have than waiting, you know.
Yeah. I always say progress over perfection.
Yes.
Right.
Which is, it's a, you know, a 12-step slogan, but it's so good. But, you know, like, and for me, like, I knew I had to do a lot more work. I did work before I came into AA, and then I've continued to do work in the 12-step world and therapy and, you know, different things. And like when my stepmother passed, she OD'd on morphine, and we weren't like, yay, but it was a gift that she was finally in a free. And I led her memorial service, which is a miracle. And I did my own ceremony in Austin to a tree. Now, I had already written lots of letters that I had burned and, done lots and lots of making amends and, and so I did my own ceremony to a tree that was basically like, I need to list this one more time and I forgive you, but I don't condone you. But it would not have been appropriate at a service.
Right.
And then I came to Dallas and she'd been cremated and I had ordered these butterflies you can get online. It's really cool and you have to make sure they sort of defrost. And I led this service and everybody talked about, what she had been before she got so sick and it was so healing for everybody. And then we released the butterflies and the next day my dad was like, Elaine, there's butterflies at the office. I said, maybe that's spirit thanking us, And I'm just so grateful I've been able to do the work so that I could do that because nobody else in my family could have led that service.
Right.
And it felt absolutely, it was at this park where we used to go. Nobody's really religious. So it just felt like it was the right thing for us and for her.
It's powerful. And that is true forgiveness, the letting go. I mean, and the butterflies are the metaphor for that. What did forgiveness look like for you as that process? Because the minute you say, I forgive you, that it doesn't start or end there. It's a process, and you have to be present as a constant process. And really, and you've said this, and I don't mean to steal your lines, but you've said you've chosen happiness. You have to choose happiness on a daily basis to break through those struggles. What has that looked like for you that has led you now to having this business, helping other women struggling?
That's such a good point because, I said, if I was a car, I'd be like a Jaguar 1983, okay on the outside, but needs extra oil changes. I feel like I can get ready fast, but I need emotional. I meditate. I pray, I go to a lot of 12-step meetings, I work out daily because that helps me get in my body and get out of here. And I have to ongoingly do forgiveness work. Just because you do it once doesn't mean it might, stuff comes back up.
Yes, yeah.
And that was at first like, oh man. And then I'm like, okay,
I already did this thing.
Right, like didn't I? But then I think, you know what, if I can help more people, and it helps me be a better human being and a better coach and a teacher and a mentor, then I'm going to get up and go to the gym and go to my meeting and do what I need to do. Another thing is I have to keep forgiving myself. And that is harder. Self-forgiveness, I think, is, sometimes you look back and you're like, oh, that opportunity, or if only, and I know that's, we have a tendency to do that, and I know it doesn't serve us when we're like, what if, or if only. But sometimes I have to do more work on forgiving myself because, I made a lot of mistakes when I was younger. And that's one reason I love yoga. It has taught me compassion.
Yeah.
And it has helped me with the whole letting go. When I first came into meetings, people were like, let go, let God. I was like, what?
What does this mean?
Like, what is it?
Right,
you
right.
people are so happy. And, I was just happy people. And that's one reason I just love yoga because it gave me some physical things I could do. And I don't fully understand what happens. But after breathing and sweating and stretching and moving your body an hour 15, I leave and I have a sense of being lighter. And energy has left my body, not just sweat. Yeah. So I don't fully understand it, but I know it works. So I just keep doing it.
I have to ask you a very personal question.
Okay.
And it's kind of dangerous because I didn't give this to you beforehand. But what have you forgiven yourself for?
Oh.
And you don't have to, we don't need a laundry list, but I think it's really important that women know what that means. That what do we forgive ourselves for?
Oh, that's really great. I feel like I'm just now stepping into my power like never before. And sometimes I'm like, Elaine, but I know for me that it was dangerous to own my power in my family. If I stood for myself, I got hit. If I came back from staying with my cousin and I was confident because my aunt had taught me how to walk and put on makeup, my stepmother couldn't handle that. And so I try to have compassion and forgive myself that I feel like it's taken me so long,
Oh, yeah.
Or like I stayed at a job that was very toxic and dysfunctional for too long because I was afraid, okay, it's
Fear.
okay. Fear.
Fear overcomes everything.
So much,
Right? It runs most of our lives. most people.
And, you know, just knowing like I was doing the best job I knew how to do with the tools and resources I had. And now I keep choosing, you know, it's a constant thing, right? And forgiving myself about, you know, the job. And then, you know, I've stayed with some not good men for me. And so that, you know, that comes up sometimes.
Yeah. So I think women, a lot of women out there have to overcome that speed bump of I'm not good enough.
Yes.
Right? The fear. We live in many places, and they all look they look different, but generally I think a lot of it boils down to fear. Let's talk about your business, because we are like moving along here.
Okay.
And talk about your business. How did you start this blooming business that has really, where I was saying you've been doing it all over the country, all over the world. Tell me about what you do to help women, and what it's meant to you and your healing.
Sure. So just to quickly back up, so, you know, I moved to New York City to do theater, worked my whole life in Texas, couldn't get arrested in New York. What? You know, and they kept saying, you're really funny, you should try comedy. And I was like, what do you mean? You know, it was hard. I knew one person, you know. Anyway, so I kind of fell into stand-up comedy. So I'm doing it, I love it, I'm not that good yet, but I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm having fun, you know. And then I was like, oh, I'll do colleges. And people were like, you're not ready. But haven't you had all those addictions? So I was like, yeah. So I kind of fell into being the funny eating disorder girl. And then they were like, can you talk about alcohol awareness? Sure. Can you talk about drug? Yes. Can you talk about sexual assault? Sure. You know, and I used humor. And so that was such a gift that I never thought I would be doing, sharing my worst moments. But when I know that I've stopped suicides, I have kids coming up, I got kids into therapy who had never thought they could do therapy. I help kids find better therapists. I took them to Al-Anon meetings. Like, it has been such a gift and an honor when people, because I'm very sort of goofy and warm, and I feel like people feel safe and they tell me things. I've never told anybody this before, but, right? So, and prior to that, when I first started doing comedy, I wasn't very good, and the night of my first show, I'm like, just get through it, you know? And then when I saw everybody bend over when I was talking about dysfunctional family stuff, I went,
everybody relates.
Right? And I thought, oh, I'm supposed to help people. And my life made sense, Lisa, because there was so much abuse. You know, it was so painful on so many levels. And to know, like, oh my God, there was a purpose to all of this was like, okay. No, I still got to keep doing work, but like it just clicked. So that, you know, and that happened a little before the speaking. But so anyway, so I love to tell that story because I teach storytelling, and I'm all about let's be vulnerable. You know, if you, because you're beautiful and thin and you have a beautiful family, and if I saw you and you got up on stage and you're like, yeah, I'd be like, I can't relate to her. She looks perfect. I want to know that you had trouble getting out of the house because your kids are, you know, whatever. Like, we need to know your humanity. And I think that most people, because we're doing so many things, right, as human beings, right? So when somebody comes up on stage and says, listen to me, or whatever, we're going, can I trust them? Is stranger danger? There's so many different things going on instinctually. So when you can be vulnerable, that has people go, oh, I can relate to that.
Right.
Right?
And I think social media feeds into this. I'm not good enough. Yeah, I'm not good enough. Everybody's having fun. Everybody's on vacation. Not me. So to that
everybody
point,
looks taller, skinnier, prettier.
Right. And we feel vulnerable because we don't feel good enough, but it's not the healthy vulnerable.
Right.
We're not putting ourselves out there and relating to each other in a really healthy way.
Right. And so, and that's one of my things, like I'm starting my new course, Captivate the Crowd on Camera. I'm so excited. Yay. And I talk a lot about connection because, again, like you're so perfect and pretty, but you know, you're also real and cool and authentic and like, yeah. But to me, when people feel connected, then they want to lean in and know more. Right. And I think we're dying for real connection because we're all hunched over the phone and you know, I was just on a family vacation and we got to connect and it was just so lovely and real, you know, like FaceTime, old school.
What is that?
Right.
You pick up the phone and you call people or you just, you know, talk to them.
Right, without like screen stuff.
Yeah.
And I love helping women in business because I feel like women are so amazing. Yeah. And every mom I know does amazing things every day, ridiculous, crazy to-do lists. and we also have these huge hearts, and we want to nurture and help and support people. And so it's so exciting to me to help people tell the stories of their business or why they got into what they do.
Right. You're really helping prop up women. I love the fact that you're helping them find their voice, because it's really important today that any business owner, so this is, I think you do work with men and women,
Yes.
but for anyone that owns a business, you need, and a personal, even as a person, you have to have a brand. And you're creating those stories for brands, right? A personal brand, a business brand. And I think in that process, what I love about that is that you're helping people discover themselves, because when you sit down with well, I would say get around stay-at-home moms. I mean, this isn't for everybody, but stay-at-home moms who had careers, they ended up staying home, and then you say, well, what's your talent or what's your gift? I don't know. I don't do anything. I don't know what my skills are. I don't, you know, and that's really a tragedy, because for me, as you know, a stay-at-home mom and having lots of friends with stay-at-home mom, they're full of talent.
Oh, so much.
Right.
And I feel like we forget. You know, Tony Robbins always says, I'm not teaching you anything. I'm just reminding you of what you already know.
Right,
you know?
right.
And so that's one of my things I love to tell, like, and it's usually like the second or third story. You know, people go, well, I don't know about this one. And you're really going, yes, yes. You know, people have amazing stories. And I think it's easy to forget what we've overcome or our aha moments or the transformational moments, because we're so busy, you know, in the doing and the living of our lives. And so, you know, I love helping people find that. Yeah.
Well, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was gonna say that I also think you're finding authenticity by understanding how to help someone create a story about them. You're breaking out of that electronic. So we're putting it up on electronic modem, right? But I feel like you're really allowing people to connect with themselves so that they can connect better one-on-one. Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It all starts, you know, with that connection and, you know, with self and spirit, whatever that means to you. And, you know, there's a lot of fear of being cyberbullied, right? And so I always really work on getting grounded in your why, you know, because it's easy. I'm 5'2.5". I've always been curvy. Blah, 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 I've got, you know, but when I think about, I want to make a difference in the world, I want to use my story for good, I want to help create expression and transformation, and I want us to remember that human beings are good. Sometimes we get scared and we forget and we're unconscious, but deep down we're essentially good, and we want to help each other, and we don't have to be in this tribal, I got here first, whatever, you know, like I believe that we're good and we just forget. And so I feel like that's part of my mission too. And to, you know, can you take like the worst parts of your life and use it as teaching moments? You know, like that's part of the story work that I do. And helping people get over, oh, how do I look? Like think about the difference you want to make.
Yeah.
You know, and when you're lit up, you're beautiful, right?
Absolutely.
Right, when we're speaking with passion and we're just like, I want to make a difference with my life. I'm here. I should have been dead 87 times. Use me, you know? Like, I'm so lucky to be alive and healthy. So use me, God, you know? It keeps coming out in different expressions, but so I get so passionate, but, you know, because I know so many healers and coaches and therapists, and they're doing amazing work with like 20 people. And I'm like, let's get you 200, 2,000. We need people need help. You know, we need help. We need mental help. We need to, you know.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. You know what? I hate to cut it here, but we have to go. Do you know we've been
Oh my
talking for
gosh.
30 minutes? I know.
Oh my gosh.
We'll have to have you come back.
I would love that. I'm sorry. I hope I wasn't a runaway train.
No, I loved it. I hope that what you had to talk about today really reaches our audience. I want people to know that no matter where you start in life, that you can go anywhere. You just really tap into those talents, tap into the gift, overcome the fear, and you know, any one of us can get to where we want to go. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
A very special thanks to our guest, Elaine Williams, for sharing her personal story. It's very personal. And thank you, our viewers, for watching today. For more shows like this on Hometown TV, please visit us at our website at hometowntv.org. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Hometown Television. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and subscribe to our Instagram. As always, thank you for watching. I'm Lisa Allen, and this is As a Matter of Fact. Have a great day.